Welcome, friends. Get comfortable, settle into your pillows, and let the weight of the day drain away. Tonight, we're going to explore the Third Punic War, a conflict that took place over 2,000 years ago between Rome and Carthage. But this isn't a story about glory or heroes. It's a story about fear, power, and the choices empires make when they believe survival depends on destruction. We'll move through this story slowly, calmly, walking through ancient streets, standing in Roman Senate chambers, watching as history unfolds. The facts are real. The history is accurate. But the journey is immersive. Before we begin, I'm curious. What time is it where you are right now? Are you drifting off as the sun sets? Or is it already deep into the night? Drop a comment and let me know where in the world you're listening from tonight. Now close your eyes and let's begin the story. You stand where a city once stood. The wind moves across broken stone. Columns lean like tired soldiers. The Mediterranean stretches beyond, indifferent and eternal. You're on the coast of North Africa, in what is now Tunisia, among ruins that barely whisper their own name. This was Carthage. Between 149 and 146 BCE, Rome fought its third and final war against this ancient rival. But by the time this war began, Carthage posed no military threat to Rome whatsoever. It had no army, no navy, no means of conquest. It was a trading city, prosperous but defenseless, bound by treaty to Roman approval for any act of war. And yet Rome destroyed it completely. You walk slowly through the ruins. Fragments of pottery crunch softly under your feet. You try to imagine the voices that once filled this space. Merchants haggling over purple dye, children playing in narrow streets, priests chanting in temples now reduced to foundation stones. Nothing here looks dangerous. Nothing here suggests a power capable of threatening the greatest empire the Mediterranean had ever known. So why did Rome fear it? You pause at what might have been a marketplace. The wind carries the salt smell of the sea. Somewhere in the distance, waves break against rocks that once supported a harbor filled with ships. This place was erased so thoroughly that even its destruction feels quiet, almost gentle in retrospect. But the erasure was deliberate. It was methodical. It was Rome's choice. By the end of this story, you'll understand how fear, not strength, not justice, but fear, can turn power into something unrecognizable. You'll see how a republic that once prided itself on measured response became capable of annihilation. And you'll stand, as you do now, in the aftermath, wondering what was truly won. The Third Punic War is not a story of heroes. It's a story of inevitability. You turn toward the sea. The light is fading. Somewhere beneath these stones, the answers wait. You're walking through Carthage, but not the Carthage that will burn. This is Carthage in the year 180 BCE, roughly 20 years after its catastrophic defeat to Rome in the Second Punic War. The streets are busy. Merchants call out in Punic, Latin, and Greek. Ships unload grain, ivory, textiles. Children run between market stalls. The harbor sparkles in the afternoon sun. This is a city that lost everything and somehow survived. In 202 BCE, at the Battle of Zama, Rome's general Scipio Africanus crushed Hannibal's army and ended Carthage's military power forever. The peace treaty was brutal. Carthage surrendered its entire navy. Hundreds of ships burned or confiscated. Its army was disbanded. It was forbidden from waging war without Roman permission. And it was required to pay Rome 10,000 talents of silver over 50 years. A sum so vast it would cripple most nations. But Carthage was not most nations. You pass a counting house where clerks track shipments. Carthage had always been a merchant culture, a Phoenician colony that became an empire through trade rather than conquest. Without an army to fund, without wars to fight, the city poured its energy into what it knew best: commerce. Within a generation, Carthage was prosperous again, not powerful, not armed, but wealthy. The recovery was remarkable. Carthaginian traders established new routes across the Mediterranean. They imported tin from Britain, amber from the Baltic, spices from the East. The city's workshops produced dyed textiles. The famous Tyrian purple that marked wealth and status across the ancient world. Glassmakers, metalworkers, shipbuilders all found new purpose and peace. You watch a Carthaginian trader negotiate the price of Spanish silver with a Roman merchant. They laugh. They share wine. The transaction concludes smoothly. There is no tension here, no threat. This is peaceful coexistence. The marketplace is a testament to recovery. Stalls overflow with goods. Money changes hands freely. Different languages blend into a comfortable hum of commerce. And that terrifies Rome. You see, Rome had spent 60 years at war with Carthage across two massive conflicts. The First Punic War from 264 to 241 BCE, and the second from 218 to 201 BCE. An entire generation of Romans grew up believing Carthage was the existential enemy. Hannibal had crossed the Alps with elephants. He had ravaged Italy for 16 years, destroying Roman armies at Trebia, at Lake Trasimene, at Cannae, where 70,000 Romans died in a single day. Rome won that war, but the trauma remained. You stand at the edge of Carthage's harbor. The sun is setting. The city is peaceful, productive, harmless. But in Rome, senators look at reports of Carthaginian prosperity and see not merchants, but ghosts. They see Hannibal. They see legions drowning in blood. They see a rival that refused to die. Rome had become the Mediterranean's supreme power. It controlled Italy, Spain, Greece, North Africa's coast. It had no equals, but it had learned a dangerous lesson from the Punic Wars. Rivals, even defeated ones, can return. You turn back toward the city. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Laughter echoes from a tavern. Somewhere, a child is being put to bed. None of them know what's coming. You're in Rome now, inside the Senate chamber. The year is approximately 153 BCE. The room is hot, crowded with men in togas debating grain subsidies, provincial appointments, the tedious machinery of empire. You stand along the wall, observing. Then an old man rises to speak. His name is Marcus Porcius Cato, known as Cato the Elder. He's 81 years old, a former consul, a censor, a man who fought in the Second Punic War as a young soldier. He has seen Carthage at its height. He has seen Roman blood spilled. And now, in his final years, he has become obsessed with a single idea. He doesn't shout. His voice is steady, measured. The voice of a man who has already decided the truth. Carthago delenda est, he says. Carthage must be destroyed. The Senate continues its business. Cato sits down. Another senator rises to discuss taxes. The day proceeds. The next session, Cato rises again. No matter the topic, roads, treaties, elections, he ends the same way. Carthago delenda. You watch this happen week after week, month after month. At first, some senators are annoyed. Others ignore him. A few laugh quietly. But Cato is relentless. He is a Roman institution, a moral authority, a living connection to the war that nearly destroyed Rome. And slowly, his repetition begins to work. Carthage must be destroyed. The phrase becomes familiar. It becomes normal. And for some, it becomes true. Cato reportedly returns from a diplomatic mission to North Africa and brings figs to the Senate. Fresh figs from Carthage. He lets them fall from his toga onto the Senate floor. Look how close they are, he says. 3 days' sail from Rome. This is how near our enemy grows wealthy. You notice how fear spreads, not through violence, not through crisis, but through repetition, through the slow drip of anxiety into the minds of powerful men. Carthage has no army. It has violated no treaty. It threatens no Roman territory, but exists. It prospers. And that, to men like Cato, is threat enough. The logic is simple and terrible. Rome nearly fell once to Carthage. Rome must never risk falling again. Therefore, Carthage must cease to exist. You listen as younger senators begin to echo the phrase. Some believe it. Others say it to appear strong. The distinction stops mattering. Cato the Elder will die in 149 BCE, just as the Third Punic War begins. He will not live to see Carthage burn, but his words will light the match. You watch him leave the Senate chamber, an old man bent by age but unbent by doubt. He has convinced Rome that survival requires annihilation. and Rome is listening. You're standing in Carthage's council chamber in the year 151 BCE. The room is quiet. Around a long table sit the city's leaders, merchants, priests, magistrates. They look exhausted. For decades, Carthage has endured provocations from its neighbor, the Numidian kingdom ruled by King Massinissa. Numidia is Rome's ally, the very same Massinissa who helped Scipio defeat Hannibal at Zama. And since that victory, he has been rewarded with land, legitimacy, and Roman protection. He has also been slowly devouring Carthage's territory. Year by year, Numidian forces seize Carthaginian farmland. They claim ancient boundaries, invoke old treaties, use force when necessary. The pattern is always the same. Numidian soldiers cross the border, occupy fertile valleys, drive out Carthaginian farmers. When Carthage protests, Massinissa produces documents, some genuine, some questionable, claiming the land was always Numidian. Carthage appeals to Rome for arbitration, as the peace treaty requires. Rome sans commission. Distinguished senators arrive, tour the disputed territories, listen to both sides. The commissions delay, deliberate, and generally rule in Numidia's favor. Sometimes they split the difference, granting Massinissa most of what he wants while appearing diplomatic. Carthage loses land. Massinissa grows stronger. Rome maintint plausible neutralité. You watch the council members debate in low voices. The situation is impossible. The treaty forbids Carthage from waging war without Roman permission. But Numidia is taking everything: grain fields, olive groves, villages that have been Carthaginian for generations. If Carthage does nothing, it will be slowly consumed. If it defends itself, it will violate the treaty. Someone suggests another appeal to Rome. The suggestion is met with tired silence. How many appeals have there been? 10? 20? Each time, Rome promises justice. Each time, Carthage loses more territory. Another counselor suggests paying Massinissa to stop. But Massinissa doesn't need money. He has Rome's backing. What he wants is land, power, the slow absorption of Carthage's remaining territory into his kingdom. A third proposes simply accepting the losses. We survived the war with Rome, he says quietly. We can survive this. But Carthage is tired of losing. In 150 BCE, after years of encroachment, Carthage finally raises an army, not to attack Rome, not to reconquer lost empire, but to defend its remaining territory against Numidian aggression. The army is poorly trained, hastily assembled, composed of men who haven't held weapons in decades. Massinissa's professional forces destroy them. You stand outside the council chamber as the news arrives. Carthage's army has been routed. Thousands are dead. The military expedition was a disaster. But the military outcome barely matters. Rome now has its legal justification. You see it in the faces of the counselors as they emerge. The slow realization that they have done exactly what Rome needed them to do. Carthage has waged war without Roman permission. It has violated the treaty, and in the Roman Senate, men who have been waiting for this moment now have the excuse they've been seeking. Within months, Rome declares war. You watch Carthaginian diplomats prepare to leave for Rome. They will offer apologies, reparations, anything to avoid conflict. They know Carthage cannot win a war. Everyone knows this, but you're beginning to understand that winning or losing is not the point. Rome didn't need Carthage to be strong. It needed Carthage to be guilty, and now it is. You're in Carthage in the spring of 149 BCE. A Roman fleet has appeared off the coast. 80,000 infantry, 4,000 cavalry, hundreds of ships. This is not an invasion yet. This is a statement. Carthage responds immediately. The city sends ambassadors to the Roman camp with full authority to negotiate any terms necessary to preserve peace. You watch them depart, senior statesmen in their finest robes, carrying the weight of a city's survival. The Romans present their first demand: 300 hostages, children of Carthage's noblest families, to be surrendered immediately as a guarantee of good faith. You stand in the forum as the list of names is read aloud. 300 children, sons and daughters of senators, merchants, priests. The crowd is silent. Parents step forward. Some weep quietly. Others are numb. The children, some as young as 12, are gathered, dressed in clean clothes, prepared for a journey they don't understand. You watch a mother adjust her son's cloak. She does not look at his face. If she looks, she will break. The children are loaded onto ships and delivered to the Romans. Carthage has complied. Surely, this will be enough. The Romans present their second demand. Carthage must surrender all weapons and armor. Every sword, every spear, every catapult. The city must disarm completely. Again, Carthage complies. You watch as wagons roll through the streets collecting weapons. Ceremonial swords from old families. Armor stored since the wars with Hannibal. Farm tools that could be used as weapons. Everything. The Romans count 200,000 sets of arms. 3,000 catapults. Mountains of bronze and iron. Surrendered without resistance. Carthage has no hostages and no weapons. It is defenseless. And then the Romans present their third demand. You're in the council chamber when the ambassadors return. They look hollowed out. One of them speaks, his voice barely steady. Rome commands that Carthage be abandoned. The entire population must relocate at least 10 miles inland. The city itself must be destroyed. We may build a new settlement, but not here. Not on the coast. Not where ships can reach us. The room goes silent. You understand what this means. Carthage is a merchant city. Its wealth, its identity, Its entire existence depends on access to the sea. To move inland is to cease being Carthage. It is to become a scattered collection of farmers in a foreign landscape, cut off from trade routes, from the harbors their ancestors built, from the civilization they have maintained for 600 years. This is not a demand for surrender. This is a demand for self-erasure. Someone asks quietly, and if we refuse, the ambassador doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. You can hear the Roman legions outside the walls, preparing. You watch as the realization spreads through the chamber, then through the city. Parents gave their children to Rome, believing it would bring peace. The city surrendered weapons that could have defended it, believing cooperation would save them. But Rome never intended to let Carthage survive. Every demand was designed to weaken Carthage for what comes next. You stand in the forum as night falls. Somewhere a woman is screaming, not in panic, but in grief. The sound is raw, ancient, the sound of someone who has lost everything before the loss has even begun. Carthage closes its gates. If it must die, it will die as itself. You're inside Carthage now. The gates are sealed. The year is still 149 BCE, and the city has made an impossible choice. Resist annihilation. But resist with what? You walk through streets that hum with desperate purpose. Carthage surrendered its weapons. It has no army. It has no tools of war. And yet, in every workshop, every courtyard, every public square, the city is arming itself. You watch a goldsmith melt down ceremonial cups. The gold will be sold to buy food, supplies, anything that could sustain a siege. Beside him, a blacksmith heats iron that once was a gate hinge. It will become a sword. Women cut their long hair and twist it into ropes for catapults. The hair is strong, flexible, perfect for torsion springs. They sit in circles, braiding, their hands moving with practiced efficiency. No one complains. No one hesitates. Temples surrender their bronze doors. You watch as priests carefully remove the sacred portals, blessing them before they're carried to the forges. Ancient statues are pulled down and melted. The city consumes itself to create weapons. Bronze becomes spearheads. Iron becomes blades. Lead becomes sling bullets. The transformation is total. Every resource, every skill, every person becomes part of the war effort. Tanners make leather armor. Carpenters build siege equipment. Potters shape clay vessels for Greek fire. The city has become a single workshop with one purpose: survival. Slaves are freed and armed. The decision is practical. Carthage needs every capable fighter, but it's also revolutionary. Men and women who were property yesterday are citizens today, given weapons and assigned to defensive positions. You see a former household slave drilling with a spear, his face set with determination. He has a reason to fight now. This city gave him freedom. Merchants become soldiers. You see men in their 50s learning to hold spears, their hands soft from counting coins, now blistered from drilling in the forum. There is no illusion here. No one believes Carthage can defeat Rome's legions. But they can make Rome pay for every street. The Roman commanders, both consuls leading 80,000 men, expect a quick victory. Carthage is defenseless. Its walls are tall, but its garrison is improvised. A few assaults should break the city. They are wrong. You stand on the walls at night, looking out at the Roman camp. Their fires stretch along the coast. You can hear voices, laughter, the sounds of men confident in their victory. But the walls hold. Carthage's harbor remains open. Supply ships slip in at night. The city is besieged but not sealed. Months pass. You move through the streets and notice the changes. Food is rationed. People grow thinner. But there's no panic. Carthage has endured sieges before. It knows how to wait. Bread is distributed in the forum. Water is carefully managed. The elderly take smaller portions so children can eat. You see a grandmother hand her ration to a young girl, smiling as if this is normal, as if this is fine. The Romans try to blockade the harbor, but Carthaginian sailors, men who've known these waters since childhood, break through repeatedly. Rome's naval commanders are competent, but the Carthaginians are desperate, and desperation makes them brilliant. You watch a supply ship approach at dawn, low in the water, laden with grain. Roman vessels move to intercept. The Carthaginian crew alters course, uses the wind differently, slips past the blockade through a gap too narrow for Roman ships to safely follow. The crew docks, unloads, and disappears into the city before the Romans can respond. This happens again and again. The Roman consuls grow frustrated. They launch assaults on the walls. You watch from a rooftop as ladders rise and Roman soldiers climb. Carthaginian defenders, shopkeepers, freedmen, old veterans pour boiling oil, drop stones, thrust spears down at the climbers. Bodies fall. The ladders are pushed away. The Romans retreat. They try again the next day, and the next. Rome begins to learn what it means to fight an enemy with nothing left to lose. You're in a workshop where women sew leather into armor. A young woman, maybe 20, stitches calmly, her hands steady. She lost her husband in the failed war against Numidia. Her children were taken as hostages to Rome. She has nothing left but this: her city, her work, her defiance. She does not speak. She sews. The needle moves in and out. Somewhere outside, the Romans are preparing another assault. By the end of 149 BCE, Rome has achieved almost nothing. The consuls are recalled in disgrace. New commanders arrive. The siege continues. You stand in the forum on a cold evening. The city is quieter now, not from defeat, but from exhaustion. People move with purpose, but slowly. There is no celebration, no triumph, just endurance. Carthage will not surrender, but is bleeding. You're watching the Roman camp in the spring of 147 BCE. Something has changed. A new commander has arrived. His name is Publius Cornelius Scipio Aemilianus, and he is the adopted grandson of Scipio Africanus, the man who defeated Hannibal at Zama. He is young, disciplined, and methodical. He does not drink. He does not boast. He simply works. You observe him from a distance, moving through the camp. He does not shout at his officers. He speaks quietly, gives clear orders, and expects them to be followed. Within days, the entire Roman force begins to change. Scipio's first act is to restore discipline. The siege is dragged on for 2 years. The Roman soldiers have grown lazy, trading with the enemy, ignoring orders, treating the siege as a tedious job rather than a war. Scipio ends this immediately. Merchants are expelled from the camp. Soldiers drill daily. Officers who fail to maintain standards are removed. The Romans stop looking like an army waiting for victory. They start looking like an army preparing for work. You watch as Scipio walks the perimeter of Carthage's walls, studying them. He does not seem angry. He does not seem eager for glory. He seems like a man solving a problem. The problem is this: Carthage remains supplied by sea. As long as ships can reach the harbor, the city can endure indefinitely. Previous Roman commanders tried to blockade the harbor and failed. Scipio decides to close it permanently. You watch from Carthage's walls as Roman engineers begin constructing a massive mole, a stone causeway extending into the sea, designed to seal the harbor entrance. Thousands of soldiers haul rocks, timber, earth. The work is slow, relentless, efficient. Day by day, the causeway extends farther into the water. Carthage responds. You see engineers inside the city working frantically on a desperate plan. If the main harbor is sealed, they will dig a new one. At night, you hear the sounds of digging, crews working by torchlight, tunneling through the city's seaward wall to create a second outlet to the sea. It takes months. The work is done in secret, in silence. And then one morning, Carthaginian warships emerge from a harbor entrance the Romans didn't know existed. You stand on the walls and watch the Roman faces as they realize what has happened. Scipio does not panic. He simply adjusts. His fleet repositions. The Carthaginian ships fight bravely, but they are outnumbered and outmatched. Some are destroyed, some retreat. The new harbor is discovered. Scipio seals it too. By the winter of 147 BCE, Carthage is truly isolated. The food supplies dwindle. People begin to starve in earnest now. Not from rationing, but from actual scarcity. You walk through streets that smell of smoke and hunger. Children no longer play. The elderly sit quietly in doorways, conserving energy. You pass a house where a family is eating boiled leather, another where they're making soup from grass and seawater. The city has not surrendered, but it is dying. You watch Scipio from the walls. He does not celebrate. He does not gloat. He tightens the siege, brick by brick, until there is no space left for hope. He is not cruel. He is not merciful. He is simply thorough. And that makes him more terrifying than any conqueror who rages. You understand now what kind of ending this will be. Not a battle. Not a climactic clash of armies. Just slow, methodical erasure. Scipio will not break Carthage with courage or luck. He will break it with patience. And Carthage, for all its defiance, cannot outlast Rome's patience. You're inside Carthage in the spring of 146 BCE. 3 years have passed since the siege began. The city is skeletal. People move like shadows. Starvation has done what Roman swords could not. And now, the walls are breaking. Scipio's forces have built siege ramps, brought up towers, positioned artillery. You watch from a rooftop as the first Roman soldiers breach the outer wall near the harbor. There is no dramatic charge. The Romans advance carefully, shields raised, testing for resistance. The resistance comes, but it is weak. Carthaginian defenders, starved, exhausted, outnumbered, fight with everything they have left, which is almost nothing. The Romans push inward, street by street, block by block. You move through the city as the battle unfolds. It does not sound like war. There is no roar of armies, no thunder of cavalry. Just the scrape of sandals on stone, the occasional shout, the soft clatter of weapons. Smoke drifts through narrow alleys, gray and thick, carrying the smell of burning wood and something else. Something sweet and terrible that you don't want to identify. The air tastes of ash. Carthaginian civilians retreat toward the city center, toward the Bursa, the citadel, the highest point in Carthage, where the temple of Eshmun stands. This is the last refuge. If the city falls, this is where the end will happen. Families carry what they can: blankets, water skins, small children. The elderly are helped along by younger relatives. No one runs. There's no energy left for running. The fighting continues for 6 days. You follow the Roman advance. They do not rush. They clear each building, each street with grinding thoroughness. Carthaginian defenders make stands at intersections, in marketplaces, on rooftops. They fight until they cannot fight anymore. Some are killed. Some collapse from exhaustion. Some simply disappear into the smoke, their fates unknown. You pass a narrow street where bodies lie in doorways, not from violence, but from starvation. An old man sits against a wall, eyes open, gone. A child curled beside him. They look peaceful, almost asleep. The Romans step over them and continue. This is not cruelty. It's just the mechanics of conquest. The living must be dealt with. The dead are already dealt with. On the second day, you watch Roman soldiers set fire to buildings to flush out defenders. The flames spread quickly through the dry, wooden structures. Families flee into the streets, coughing, disoriented. Some are captured immediately. Others run toward the bursa. On the fourth day, you climb toward the bursa. The streets are steep, the buildings packed tightly together. Thousands of people have crowded into this final space. Soldiers, civilians, families. There is no food. There is barely water. But there is nowhere else to go. The citadel is the last piece of Carthage that hasn't fallen. You stand at the base of the temple steps. Above, you can see the silhouettes of defenders on the walls. Below, Roman soldiers gather. Scipio himself is nearby, directing the final assault. He looks tired, not triumphant, just tired. The Romans begin to climb. You watch the last defenders fight. Some throw stones. Some wield broken swords. A few have spears. They're fighting with weapons scavenged from the dead, with tools, with anything. They are fighting because surrender means slavery, and slavery means the end of everything they are. The temple falls. You move through the smoke toward the highest point. Inside the temple, people have gathered, women, children, priests. Some are praying. Some are silent. Roman soldiers enter. Orders are given. The people are herded outside, sorted, chained. 50,000 survivors. Out of a city that once held 700,000. You stand on the temple steps and look out over Carthage. Smoke rises from 100 fires. The harbor is empty. The walls are broken. The streets are silent. The city is gone. You're standing in Carthage 17 days after the temple fell. The fighting is over. The sorting has begun. Roman soldiers move through the ruins, gathering survivors. You watch as families are separated. Men from women, children from parents. The chains are efficient, well made. Rome has done this before. 50,000 people will be sold into slavery. They will be scattered across the Mediterranean, some to Italian estates, some to Greek mines, some to households in Spain or Gaul. Carthage's population will be dispersed so completely that within a generation, there will be almost no one left who remembers the language, the customs, the prayers. You walk through the marketplace where you stood in chapter 1. The stalls are burned. The pavement is cracked and scorched. Weeds are already beginning to grow through the stones. The Roman Senate has issued orders. Carthage is to be destroyed completely. Not just defeated, not just occupied, destroyed. Every building is to be pulled down. Every wall is to be broken. The city must become a ruin so absolute that no one will ever rebuild it. You watch as soldiers begin the work. They use hammers, fire, oxen hitched to ropes. Temples are pulled down stone by stone. Houses collapse into their own foundations. The harbor, the greatest in the ancient world, is filled with rubble. There is a story that Rome salted the earth to ensure nothing would grow here again. The story is probably false. Rome wanted the land for its own use, and salting would have been expensive, symbolic, but impractical. But the story persists because it captures something true. This was not just military victory. This was deliberate erasure. You stand at the edge of what was once the harbor. The water laps against broken stone. Ships used to dock here by the hundred, traders from Sicily, Egypt, Greece, Iberia. Now there's only debris and silence. Carthaginian culture does not end all at once. There are survivors in other cities, communities that spoke Punic, practiced the religion, remembered the stories. But without Carthage, the center is gone. Within a few generations, the language will fade. The text will be lost. The temples will close. By the time of Jesus, Carthage will be a Roman city rebuilt on these ruins, and almost no one will remember what it replaced. You walk through the ruins at dusk. The Roman soldiers are finishing for the day. Smoke drifts from the last fires. Somewhere in the distance, a dog is barking. You think about the children taken as hostages in 149 BCE. They're scattered now, slaves in Roman households. Some of them are probably still alive. They will never see their city again. They will die in foreign lands, speaking Latin, worshiping Roman gods. Carthage fell in 146 BCE. The same year, Rome destroyed Corinth in Greece. Two great cities annihilated in a single season. Rome was making a statement. Resistance is not just costly, it is fatal. You turn away from the harbor. The sun is setting. The ruins glow in the fading light, gold and orange and shadow. Carthage is gone. You leave the ruins as night falls. The Third Punic War achieved everything Rome intended. Carthage was destroyed. Its people were enslaved or scattered. Its culture was erased. Rome's rival, the enemy that haunted Roman nightmares for a century, ceased to exist. And Rome was worse for it. The destruction of Carthage marked a turning point in Roman history. The republic that once fought defensive wars, that once claimed to value honor and restraint, had demonstrated that it was willing to annihilate a defenseless rival simply because that rival made it uncomfortable. The precedent was set. Total war became acceptable. Annihilation became policy. Within a generation, Rome would turn this philosophy inward. The same republic that destroyed Carthage would descend into civil war. Romans slaughtering Romans, generals marching on Rome itself, proscriptions and purges, and the slow collapse of republican government. The men who learned to destroy cities would eventually destroy their own institutions. You walk away from the coast into the quiet hills beyond. The stars are out. The Mediterranean is calm. Cato the Elder got his wish. Carthage was destroyed, But the Rome he was trying to protect, the principled, restrained republic of his youth, was already disappearing. Fear had made Rome powerful, and power had made Rome cruel. The transformation was gradual, almost invisible to those living through it, but irreversible. You think about the impossible choice Carthage faced. Surrender meant erasure. Resistance meant death. There were no good options, just the slow, inevitable logic of a stronger power that had decided survival was too dangerous. Carthage's crime was not aggression. It was simply existing in a world where Rome demanded absolute security. Carthage did not fall because it was strong. It did not fall because it threatened Rome. It fell because Rome was afraid. And fear, you understand now, is the most dangerous force in history. Not because it makes us weak, but because it makes us willing to do anything, even terrible things, to feel safe again. Fear makes us see threats where none exist. It makes us destroy what we could have left alone. It transforms defensive instincts into aggressive certainty. You stop walking. The night is very quiet. A breeze moves through the grass, carrying the distant sound of waves. Above, the stars turn in their ancient patterns, the same stars that shone on Carthage at its height, on Rome in its glory, on all the empires that believed themselves eternal. Behind you, the ruins are already fading into darkness. Stone and shadow, memories and silence. Ahead, the future is unwritten. History will remember this war, but it will remember it differently than the people who lived it intended. Rome will be judged not by its victories, but by its choices. Not by what it conquered, but by what it destroyed unnecessarily. You take a slow breath. The air is cool and clean. The Mediterranean breeze carries salt and stillness. And somewhere in the silence, you understand power always wins. But winning is not the same as being right. Thank you for taking this journey through history with me tonight. I hope you found something meaningful here, whether it was knowledge, reflection, or simply a calm space to rest your mind. As you settle in for sleep, remember that these ancient stories still speak to us. They remind us that the choices empires make, choices born from fear, from insecurity, from the desire for absolute safety, echo across centuries. And they ask us to think carefully about our own times, our own powers, our own fears. Sleep well. Rest deeply. Let the weight of the day fall away. And if you'd like to explore more stories like this, stories that blend history with reflection, knowledge with calm, I'll be here. Good night.